I'm going to talk a little bit about codependency, relationships, and also awareness. And not exactly awareness, but like honesty. And starting with the idea also that, so this is from growing up in Coda, which is a book for the 12-step codependency recovery program. Loneliness is one of the most common feelings experienced by codependents. Recovering is connecting with others who feel safe as we learn to trust those who are trustworthy and share in respectful, safe ways. Both positive and painful feelings can inspire us to reach out, creating opportunity for real intimacy. Newfound joy gives us a sense of belonging and unity, that everything is as it's meant to be. Over time, we may increasingly feel connected to ourselves, our higher power, and everything around us. We experience hope, a will to live, a chance to thrive, rather than merely survive. The fear that will always be haunted by shame is common and actually magnifies the shame. Pursuing recovery, we gain new perspectives and that we can make mistakes without feeling worthless. We recognize our progress and feel less downtrodden. With childhood shame and fear, we remind ourselves we're lovable whether we believe in it or not. We ask for our help from our higher power, and we use Coda tools, in other words, a program of recovery, like sharing, listening, writing in a journal, and working the steps. A big part of recovery is unraveling the puzzle of toxic shame. Eventually, we'll be able to feel our unhealthy transferred shame when it arises and lovingly let it go. And in a codependency recovery meeting, I was learning about myself after this. And so, in fellowship. And I realized that me believing in someone's greatness is a precious gift. That's my femininity that I can offer, that I could believe in someone's greatness. My belief itself is what's giving them a lot. It brings out the best in them. Rather than doing so much to try to make their life better, just believing in someone's greatness. Also, the idea that anger is a cheap thrill for power. It's a way you could get away with it. Because you're frustrated, you let yourself be furious, you could lash out. However, swallowing anger is like cancerous spiritually for me. It's like being fake in order to get that short-term dopamine high. So, finding myself in between these is very, very important, because it's like, how do I express it, the right outlets, without swallowing it, and yet also not cause damage or do something that's dishonest or not in line with my values. Then, of course, in terms of bringing this into relationships. So why would we ever not be who we are? Probably because we're desiring validation, respect from someone who prefers to be checked out or irresponsible. So we desire some kind of instant, we desire something from somebody who's only, their desire is for instant gratification. They don't want to do hard work. They're avoidant. So then I'm, of course, setting myself up for disappointment. Why am I going to them? And also someone who doesn't really want to get away with violating another member of humanity, which is really who everyone is. That person could submit to the rules for the sake of everyone's rights. So this is someone who doesn't believe they're above the rules. They wouldn't treat someone in a way they don't want to be treated. And they could see themselves through my eyes, like how do they look from the outside? Instead of being self-aware with their own eyes, it's like being aware of the relational self. So this is a way, instead of I don't want to be self-conscious of myself, but I also don't want to be lonely, I have to give myself, and then there's no one else. So it's like you find yourself in these tensions. It's called a dialectic, and then something new is born. So we talked about before healthy ways of expressing anger, and now we're talking about healthy ways of relating to people as a self. So if we go a little deeper in this, you have to care about something. So I care about values and standards. Double standards are, rot the very substance of the bonds, letting someone get away with whatever both people know is not fair, or just abuse, or just taking advantage of another person's compassion in order to get unearned or robbed dedication and support and generosity that would come usually from a mutuality, from a circuitry. So, the resentment that maybe somebody wanted to get away with not providing and just withholding and wanted to not earn it, they're going to end up having it come out from somewhere because it has to balance out. And in order to expand, I was thinking for myself, I could work on my time management skills. That does affect people around me, motivating myself, going to nature, new places, or a place that I haven't been in a while. And that's really honoring my wandering self, the change of scenery, nomadic visitor, the stray cat touristy kind of version of myself, which helps me to get that fresh perspective. And in therapy, I talked about how let's say standards and values. So what are some qualities I deserve in a husband? I want to feel understood. I want quality time and positive feedback, personal regard for my time and space, cleanliness levels, comfort, provider, generous, and pleasant conversation. Co-values the relationship enough to make proactive efforts to do the repairs, which is to take responsibility, and emotionally mature and communicates maturely. This is call them non-negotiables, right? And versus like when I was often trained in my early life to look at people as projects where I have to like invest in them because they're like getting better is something I need. Like someone was taught that it's my responsibility rather than the truth, which is like my core identity. Due to my core identity is, lovable, worthy. It's not only if I help someone and make their life better. So in that way, I was like a consumer to, like there was consumers to the nurturer version of me. And then there was the unmet caregiver needs, like where I was trying to get care, but I thought I had to do it this way. And it was a transferring of attachments. So, yeah. And then, in terms of the hard truths that, that we have to start out. Well, before we go to hard truths, that might be in a future video, but on Instagram, there's this woman, Nadi Creator, and she says some of the signs of being used. Someone only because how do you know? Like, let's say we're just so caught up in these patterns. How do you know? The person only reaches out when they need something, even disappearing until showing up would benefit them. They don't include you in their life, family, friends, important events. Don't make effort or initiate conversations or plans or dates. Don't show care and does bare minimum. Avoids responsibility, disappears, runs, blames. Never asks about your feelings, only focused on their own comfort and well-being. Doesn't make future plans, keeps things vague and undefined. One-sided or unfair, does not invest time, energy, emotions in a mutual way so both get returns. Doesn't respect boundaries, only interested in convenience and disregards your personal space, time, or emotions. Makes you feel like an option, not a priority. Puts you second to everything and doesn't make you feel special. So we could say there's room here for people who have issues and matching up with other people who have issues and how there's going to be disagreements. But if enough of those check off, you know what you're dealing with. And then it's up to you. How do you undo this pattern? By not letting yourself be used. You will end up feeling more lovable and worthy by not letting someone use you, even though that's how you feel you would get the love. You're trying a new pattern. It's hard work, and not the hard work like lifting heavy weights. It's like hard work and just choosing a new thing and sticking to it. Because if you don't, and I'm speaking for women, Renat_EN on Instagram talks about female cortisol, which damages relationships more than cheating. So let's say you want to stay in the relationship and you want to keep being used and you're going to end up with cortisol in your body and it's not going to work out. You're going to be unhappy. Women's hormonal systems are 5 times more sensitive to stress because of the hypothalamic, pituitary, adrenal axes, releasing more cortisol and taking more time to recover. High cortisol shuts down emotional bonding. The body interprets the relationship as not safe, becomes overloading. Women get more easily stuck in a loop of anxious arousal. If I don't release with movement, deep rest, breath, it could affect sleep, libido, memory, and emotional regulation and shows up as coldness, nagging, mood swings. Of course, chronic cortisol decreases cognitive flexibility because the person's not able to think of a new perspective. They're stuck in the black and white thinking, which is common for survival mode. So they will have fewer resources for the empathy, dialogue, and problem solving that would make the relationship better. And it doesn't look biological or physiological because of how it's showing up across all systems. And we'll leave it at that. And I wish everybody all the best. Bye-bye.